Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 120 of Coach Bennett's podcast. 120, and yes, I am going to start by talking about 120 and what I think about when I hear 120. And any time and every time I hear the number 120, I think about the old MTV show that came on late at night on Saturday nights called 120 Minutes. It was all alternative music, and it was the best 2 hours of MTV all week long. And I don't know how many years it was on, but it was on while I was in high school, and thank goodness, because I discovered so many great bands from watching 120 Minutes. In fact, the first time I ever saw Oasis play was on 120 Minutes, and I thought, who is this? And I'm almost positive, I haven't looked back to confirm this, but the story in my head is that they played Supersonic, which is still a blistering, unbelievable song. But I remember watching and thinking, who are these dudes? And they were Oasis. Now, why is that so important that I bring up Oasis? Well, because Coach Bennett the Greater got tickets for us to see Oasis back a few weeks ago at MetLife Stadium, which I still call Giant Stadium, in New Jersey. It's not in New York, by the way. Even though the New York Giants and the New York Jets play there, the stadium is in New Jersey. Just throwing that in there. But anyway, when I hear 120, I think 120 minutes. And if you have the opportunity to go on YouTube and look up 120 minutes, you can see some full episodes that people posted. So anyway, I used to have a VHS tape of great 120-minute performances, because they always had like one or two live performances every show of a new band, an up-and-coming band, or just a really awesome alternative band. Anyway, so that's what I think about. That's not what this show is about, although the beginning of this show was about it. The entirety of the show is not about 120 minutes. It's actually about keeping it easy. Yeah, we're talking about easy running, and we're not just talking about easy running, we're talking about why you need to do easy running, why sometimes easy running ain't so easy, why it's important, and maybe most importantly, for those of you out there that think easy running is not quality running, or easy running equates to soft running, we're going to talk about why easy running is the most important running of all of your running. Because if you're not running easy when you need to run easy, you ain't going to be able to run hard when you want to run hard. So that's what this is about. If you want a real long life full of great running, you need to learn how to run easy. I'm just saying it. And if you want to run close to your best, you need to know how to run easy. There you go. So there's the combo. If you want to run your best, you got to learn how to run easy. If you want to run forever, your best chance of doing that is to learn how to run easy. So that's what we're going to talk about. I hope you're excited. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm back in the US of A. I was just in Berlin for, 5-6 days for the Berlin Marathon, and it was epic. It had been a while since I was on the ground in Europe with the runners. I was in Paris in the summer for Breaking 4, but I didn't get to spend that much time there. This was an opportunity to really get to spend time with lots of runners, so I had an absolute blast in Berlin. The marathon was amazing. I mean, anytime you're at a major marathon, really any marathon, anywhere, the vibes are just incredible. I love race day, and it doesn't even need to be a marathon. It doesn't need to be a road race. It could be a trail race, could be cross country, it could be track and field. It's just so good. It's like the best of humanity. I mean, if you think about it, like you're at a marathon, you have tens of thousands of people. I think there was 55,000 people that ran Berlin, and they're all close to the best version of themselves.
They put in 4 months, if not longer, of marathon training so they could show up on a starting line with the ability to run 42.2K. And some of them, it was about covering the distance. Some of them, it was the attempt to cover the distance in a certain time. For other people, it was different types of goals. Like, I want to challenge myself. I want to deal with the struggle. I want to give my best. I want to battle demons, whatever it is. I want to be proud of myself. I want the people around me to be proud of me. It's just a really cool vibe. And then each person, for the most part, has, someone with them or some people with them that are so proud of them and excited for them. And then you have, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million, I don't know how many people on the roads that are just cheering on strangers, perfect strangers, because they're inspired and motivated by them. So for like a weekend, there's just this energy in these cities where you're like, oh, this is who we could be. This is who we could be as humans if we actually just supported each other, helped each other, cheered for each other. And that like halo effect from the weekend, it lasts for a little while. Now, I'm lucky because then I usually get to go to another event. So right as it's starting to dissipate and you're, bombarded by bad news and stories of people being cruel, it's suddenly like, hey, I get to go to a high school cross-country meet, or I get to go to a track and field meet, or I get to go to another major road race. And I'm like, okay, the best of humanity is back on display. So I'm in kind of a elevated, joyous state right now. So I'm excited to talk about just keeping it easy. All right? Now, I think one of the things that I just want to say right off the bat, and this is not just for new runners, because, I don't know how many hundreds of people I spoke to over the weekend, but, it's amazing that it doesn't matter whether it's a brand new runner, so someone who's, just starting out in the sport or coming back to the sport, or it's somebody who's about to run their first marathon or their 5th marathon. This idea that the way to get better involves running always being a grind is just out there. And it's one of the things that I'm constantly like whack-a-mole, trying to, like, every time it rears its head, like, running's always supposed to be hard, whack-a-mole, running's always supposed to be a grind, whack. I'm just constantly trying to get rid of this. And I know where it comes from. I know it comes from how a lot of people are introduced to the sport. They're introduced to it the wrong way, or they're equating it with other things that they do. They may go to fitness classes where the entire purpose is to just, grind you into the ground for 30 minutes. And a lot of people assume, like, well, anything that involves fitness should be like that. So when they start running, it's, more often than not, like, I need to run for like 30 minutes. And it's like, why do you have to run for 30 minutes? And a lot of people believe that because most fitness classes are like 30 minutes. So they just equate what they know with what they don't know. And it becomes this idea that the goal of a run should be grind you into the ground, like the fitness class I just took 2 days ago was. And it's like, no, that's not it. And if you want to get better, then you cannot be grinding every single run. You can't do that. Well, I mean, you can do that. You're just not going to get much better. And the reason why you're not going to get much better is because you're not going to keep coming back to a starting line if every time waiting for you on the other side of the starting line is a grind. You can get so much more out of your running than just suffering. And when it's self-induced suffering, well, you realize, like, this is all I'm ever going to do because this is all I'm ever going to do. So let me just tell you ahead of time, no, it's not always supposed to be a grind. And if all of your runs are grinds, if all of your runs are hard, if all of your runs end with you ending before you would like to end, or ending because you have to end because you can't go any further, you're running the wrong way. Now don't get upset because I just told you you're running the wrong way. A lot of times people get very defensive. No, this is great news. You just found out you've been doing something wrong. You should welcome that news because now you can find out how to do it right. That's great. That's fantastic. Don't get upset when you get corrected. We live in a culture now where people, rather than accepting the fact that they were wrong, they'll double down. Because I guess acknowledging that you're wrong means that, I don't know, you're weak, I guess. I mean, the mentality, I think, as being around sports forever, it just makes no sense to me. Because athletes at all levels, doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or if you're 55 years old, when you find out you've been doing something the wrong way in the world of sports, it's a very safe place to say, oh, thank you. Thank you for telling me I was, holding the racket the wrong way in tennis, or my elbow was dropping in baseball, or I'm running too hard all the time. Because in sports, you want to get better. That's one of the purposes of it. You want to end practice better. So what you expect is a teammate, coaches to help in that endeavor, which means you have to be open to criticism. And that doesn't mean critical to beat down. It means criticism to build up. So it's a very safe environment, a welcoming environment for the most part, to find out that you're doing something wrong. Outside of sports, I think we've come to a place where people would rather continue to do something wrong than to admit they are wrong, which is toxic and terrible. But in sports, it's for the most part welcomed. So let me just tell you, if you're running hard all the time, you're running the wrong way. Now, here's the cool part. You can change. You can alter the way you're running, and you're going to start running better. Oh, isn't that awesome? The answer is yes, that is in fact awesome. So it's not always supposed to be a grind. Now, let me also say this. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's supposed to be a grind. Now, that can mean very different things. The grind doesn't always mean a physical grind. Sometimes it can be like a mindful or mental grind. Sometimes it can be a combination of the two. There's a chapter in a book called Once a Runner by John Parker. I love the book. If you've never read it, it's a great book to read. There's a chapter in there about February. And basically it's just about the grind of day in and day out going for runs. So it's not so much this, overwhelming fatigue. It's not so much that the workouts are really hard. It's just the fact that in this area where this athlete is training, it's basically just raining every day. And just the idea of going out and going for recovery run after recovery run after recovery run, it can be a grind. So it's not that you're physically wiped out after every run. It's just, it's relentless. Sometimes the sport can just be a grind because it's seemingly relentless, not highest levels of effort. It's just, guess what? It's another day. It's another run. It's another day. It's another 10K. It's another day. It's another 30 minutes. It's another day. It's another 5 miles. It's just day after day after day. And if you're someone who's trained for whatever the distance is, could be 5K, 10K, marathon, there's always a period, really just after halfway, where the gains aren't as big as they were when you first started. And the runs have gotten to a point where all the runs, the recovery runs, the long runs, they take a decent amount of effort to set up, plan for, and as a result, you kind of lose a little bit of focus because you wonder, why am I doing this? You lose a little motivation because, again, it's relentless. You're kind of lacking inspiration because those gains aren't coming the way they were. It's just day in and day out, and it can feel tedious. I always refer to this as like your time in the desert, and it is a grind, and that is one of the reasons why it is a struggle to follow through on a training plan. It's not just, the speed workouts are hard, the long run covering the distance is hard. Sometimes just recommitting to that commitment day in and day out is a grind. So sometimes it is a grind, and the grind can show up as just the tedium of consistent training. It could show up as a tempo run pace that you have to maintain for 20 or 30 or 40 minutes. It could be the grind of a long run on a hot day. It could be the grind of doing lots and lots of repeats, intervals, over and over and over again. It could be the grind of having to sacrifice certain parts of your life I think valid sacrifices, I think anytime you sacrifice something in sports, it should be in service of getting something better than what you gave up. But, giving up some late Friday nights or giving up the ability to sleep in, maybe on a day off from work, but you can't sleep in because it's getting hot. You need to wake up and get your run in. Like, that's a grind. That can be a grind. So yes, sometimes it's supposed to be a grind. It's just not always supposed to be a grind, all right? And when it is a grind, when it's supposed to be a grind, when there's a purpose to the grind, it is an opportunity. I'm sure you've heard this said before, and I've definitely said it quite a bit. It's an opportunity to learn how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is a part of the sport. I think sometimes people take it to an extreme, and I think what that means is you're supposed to get comfortable with always being uncomfortable, and that's not true. Like I said, there are times when it's supposed to be a grind. There are times when you're supposed to get uncomfortable, which is where you're going to have to push a little bit. There are times when you're supposed to be struggling and you're supposed to struggle through it. And it can show up as running. And like I mentioned, it can show up in a couple of different ways. But what you want to do is you want to be intelligent and realize, just like sometimes it's supposed to be a grind, sometimes you're supposed to be uncomfortable, and make sure when you are uncomfortable, this is one of those times when you're supposed to be uncomfortable. Because if you know that, then you also aren't going to go negative. And this is what I mean by that. A lot of times, athletes, when I say, hey, most of the time you're supposed to be running easy, when they do a hard workout, or they're supposed to do a hard workout, let's say. Could be a tempo, could be a series of intervals, could be fartlek, whatever. When they start to struggle a little bit, which, by the way, is part of the workout, okay? Not every workout, but sometimes the coach wants you to have to deal with being uncomfortable, to grind, to deal with the struggle. And athletes sometimes will say, wait a minute, I'm starting to struggle. This is getting really hard. I suck. As opposed to knowing ahead of time, hey, at some point, this is going to get tough. I'm going to struggle. I'm going to have to really, really work hard. I'm going to have doubts about whether I can do it. That is not proof of this is going wrong. It's proof of this is going right. Because you're supposed to get uncomfortable in this situation. You're supposed to grind during this workout. So, understanding every run has a purpose, understanding that at times you're supposed to get uncomfortable, you're supposed to grind, you're supposed to struggle. It's a part of the journey. It's specifically one of the aspects of this run or this workout or this part of the training cycle. It's really going to help you get through these parts of the journey. Because instead of thinking, I'm never going to get through this journey, I'm struggling, you think, I'm getting through this journey because I am struggling, and this is the part of the journey that is a struggle. I'm doing it the right way. So it's really important just to acknowledge that, appreciate that. And going hand in hand with that, though, goes back to really what the point of this talk is about keeping it easy. You also have to learn how to get comfortable with being comfortable. A lot of times, especially new runners, they will believe that if the run is easy, they're not doing enough. And I guess I shouldn't limit it to new runners because I hear it a lot from runners. I had a conversation with a few runners in Berlin about this, about getting comfortable with being comfortable. And really, I told them it comes down to confidence, to trusting yourself, to knowing that your body is saying, hey, this is an easy pace. This is a comfortable pace, and this is supposed to be an easy, comfortable run. I trust myself, as opposed to thinking, I'm backing off. I'm being weak. I'm being soft. I'm not grinding enough. Well, you're not supposed to grind at all in this run. What are you talking about? You're nailing it. If it feels easy, great. And if you've been keeping a running log, a journal, a diary, one of the things you can do to prove your progression, which means trust yourself, continue to trust yourself here, because watch this. We're now 6 weeks into you running, and you're saying, oh, this feels too easy. Well, look back 5 weeks ago at a comparable recovery run. Now, if you've been doing this the right way, you probably are running the same pace or really faster on this recovery run you're doing now for a longer distance and maintaining the same effort. That's how you can prove progression. Can I do something better than I used to for longer with the same amount of effort? If the answer is yes, then oh baby, you're crushing it. So be prepared for those conversations when you doubt, like, am I doing enough? Well, you're doing more than you used to at a higher quality of pace, and yet you've maintained that easy effort. So that 4 or 5 effort is now taking you further at a faster pace than it was 5 weeks ago. My friends, that is what we call progression, and that's what you're after, okay? So getting comfortable with being comfortable sometimes is much harder for an athlete, for a runner to deal with than the concept of get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that seems, I don't know, more natural in sports. Like, it's supposed to be hard. And when you have lots of people out there on the internet, or whatever, on social media, constantly talking about you gotta run hard and you gotta grind and you gotta constantly be clenching your teeth and look at my jaw muscles and oh my goodness, yes, I'm flexing at all times in every single picture. Oh, stop it. None of these people are getting anywhere close to where they could if they could just learn how to be comfortable with being comfortable. Good gracious. Oh my goodness. Seriously, all you need to do is pay attention to some of the fastest runners on the planet, right? And just check out the best runners in the 1500, the 5K, the 10K, the marathon, and don't pay attention to their hard workouts. Because I'll tell you what, I'll just give you like a little news flash that is not news. They work really, really, really hard when they're supposed to run really, really, really hard. Now, those other days, in between the hard days, those days that allow them to do those hard days, when they're supposed to run easy, they run easy. They go out, they have a run, they tell jokes, they argue. That's what they do. Exactly what you do. The problem is you see them and say, I could never do that. It's like, you're literally doing it now. It's not about the time on the watch. It's about the effort. And that time on the watch follows the effort. Don't let the effort follow the time on the watch, because things happen. Sometimes you need more recovery. Sometimes the weather's crazy. Sometimes life is doing its whole thing. You're not getting sleep. You're stressed out. And you got to start with effort. Then the pace will follow. So learn how to get comfortable being comfortable, and that will then allow you to take on the uncomfortable with more energy. Okay? This kind of goes into just, you've heard me say kindness is hardcore, and it is. It's much easier to be cruel. It's much easier to be nasty. And I'll give you an example. Think about yourself. Think about yourself when you're not having a great run. What do you reflexively do? What's the easiest thing to do? The easiest thing to do is to talk trash about yourself, to yourself. The easiest thing to do is to just be nasty and say things like, I suck, I'm not any good, I'm being weak, I'm being soft, I'm never going to get good in this. It's way easier to do that than to say, hey, let's check in with ourselves. What's going on? Why are we feeling this way? What can we do to alleviate some of this? How can we back off so we can have a better run? You can do this. You're strong enough to do this. You're smart enough to do this. You're probably thinking like, I never have that conversation. Yeah, because it's a hard one to have. It ain't easy being kind, especially to yourself. And here's a little, challenge for those of you that think, doing tough things is the only way to get better. Okay, on your next couple of runs, only be kind to yourself. Let's see how easy it is. Tough guy, all right? So if the only way to be hardcore is to be hardcore. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, get the tattoo. And you know what I mean? You're going to want to cover it up in a little bit because it's embarrassing. And you're probably going to spell hardcore wrong. But the point here is, if only hard things are hardcore, fine. Being kind ain't easy. Be kind. Do that. Now, here's the cool thing. You'll run better. Yes. Yeah, that positive kind of mindset, those reaffirmations in your head, the kindness to yourself as your own teammate and coach and friend, it will help you run better. So you're not sacrificing performance. In fact, when you're being a jerk to yourself, when you're being cruel to yourself, when you're being negative to yourself, you are sacrificing performance. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's right. So all of those races where you were being so nasty to yourself, you should have run faster. You sabotaged yourself. You played yourself, playa. How do you feel about that? Yeah. Now here's an easy way to get better at running without more running. Work on being kind to yourself. Work on being a great teammate to yourself. Work on being a great coach to yourself. And you will, in fact, become a better runner. All right? And this just goes back to motivations and inspiration. That's what you want. You want to be motivated. You want to be inspired. You're not going to be motivated and inspired if you're being cruel to yourself. And a lot of people are like, well, I've had coaches that were really mean and we were really good. You should have been better. All right? You should have been better. And think about this. If you need someone to be mean to you for you to be motivated, we need to go back and figure out why you're even doing this. If you think fear and cruelty is the best fuel for your performance, let me just tell you this. It is a toxic, weak fuel. It is not good. It never fills up the tank. In fact, it only corrodes the tank. It is an inefficient fuel, a low-quality fuel to try to run on fear and cruelty. Now, kindness and joy, oh yeah, that knows no bounds. It recycles itself. It is high-quality fuel. It will keep you going. And not only that, you can share it. Yes, you can share it. You will not run out of it. All right? So just think about that as you're trying to figure out, why am I low on motivation and inspiration? There are times when that's going to happen no matter what. That's natural. But if you're consistently low on it, I would first check in and just see, what kind of a teammate are you to yourself? What kind of a friend are you to yourself? What kind of a coach are you to yourself? All right? I'll just say this. All of this isn't going to make it easy. All right? Keeping it easy when it's supposed to be easy does not mean this is going to all be easy. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what we're trying to do is not make it harder than it needs to be. That's all. So by doing all of these things that we talked about on this call, on this podcast, the right way, a better way, it doesn't change the fact that sometimes running's really hard. Sometimes even easy ain't so easy. But if we can do the right thing consistently, what we're going to do is make sure that we're not having easy be harder than it needs to be. We're making sure that we're not making hard be harder than it's supposed to be. Because what you want to do from a coaching perspective is you always want to match the effort with the effort we're going for. And as athletes and crap coaches out there, they will sometimes make an effort harder than it needs to be. That doesn't make you better. It limits progression. It limits your ability to get close to your best version of yourself. If you're supposed to run easy, the best thing to do is to run easy, not make it harder than it's supposed to be. If today's going to be a hard day, it doesn't make sense to make it harder than it's supposed to be. Right? Yes. I'll break it down for you in a way that's not so, vague in terms of feelings and emotions and stuff like that. Because I know that some people just have a hard time, grasping what I'm trying to say when I talk about this. If the workout today is supposed to be, let's say, 8 400s at your 5K pace, that's what we're trying to do. 8 by 400 at your 5K pace. Whatever your 5K pace is, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to throw out a number right now. You personalize it to yourself because the number doesn't matter as long as it fits you. But let's say we're doing 8 by 400 at 5K pace with 1 minute rest in between. That's the goal. As a coach, that fits the schedule. That's what we want to do. And I say, okay, your 5K pace is, you can make it up. It's 25 minutes, right? 25 minutes. So that's 8-minute miles, 5-minute Ks. Great. All right. So we're going to be doing 2-minute quarters, right? Okay, perfect. So you go out there and you run minute 45 quarters, 15 seconds faster. Are we still doing the workout? No, we're not doing the workout anymore. You're running too hard. You're supposed to be running 2 minutes. You're running 15 seconds per quarter too fast. A minute per mile too fast. That's not the workout, which means now, as a result of what you're doing, we're going to have to recover more because you didn't do the workout. You did a totally different workout. So now, here we are, because you made what was going to be hard even harder. We now have to adjust everything else we're doing. That's what happens when you mentally sabotage yourself on a run, mindfully sabotage yourself on a run, emotionally sabotage yourself on a run. When you go out and you run your recovery runs and easy runs too hard, you're no longer doing the right workout. You're doing the wrong workout for you. And when you string together enough wrong workouts in a row, I can assure you the outcome is not a good one. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get you closer to your best self. And the way to get you closer to your best self is for you to just take it easy when you're supposed to take it easy, so you can give your best and run hard when you need to run your best and run hard. Just remember, when you're supposed to run easy, your best running is easy running, not faster than you're supposed to run. That's not your best. We have this warped mentality that when we're running our fastest, we're running our best. Well, only if we're supposed to be running our fastest. If we're running our fastest when we're supposed to be running easy, we're actually running worse. So, own your fitness, own your paces, own your efforts, and you will own your running. That's episode 120. Keep it easy. That's right. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for following or subscribing to the podcast on whatever platform you're on. I always say this, please rate and review. If you have not already, give a rating, give a kick-ass review, share it with friends, family, and teammates. Thank you for being here. And until the next episode, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll meet you on another starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you haven't already subscribed or set yourself as a follower to the podcast, I really hope you would. And make sure you check out the show notes, because in those show notes, you're going to find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter and all the social media sites I'm on, like Instagram and Threads and Cameo and Blue Sky and nope, not on that one anymore. So all the ones I am on, you're going to find it in the show notes, so check that out as well. And as always, thank you again for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast. Until next time, you keep taking care of yourself and each other.